Thank you for joining us. Friday morning, of course. Now, look, a very important thing did not happen in the Parliament this week, and it's very disappointing that it did not, but it's entirely predictable. And to a great credit, Pauline Hanson, the leader, of course, of the One Nation Party, is continuing to fight the good fight on the issue of sustainable population growth. She's not against immigration. I'm not against immigration. Not against population growth, but it has to be done in a manageable way. Everything has to be planned in life. Spontaneity, maybe with romance, but beyond that, you don't want government policy dictated to by whims and spontaneity. Yet our immigration policy seems to be exactly that. And as Dick Smith and others have pointed out, it's unsustainable. The population growth at the current rate is unsustainable, and it is having negative effects on the economy despite the headline GDP figures. Now, with that established, the thing that did not happen was this. The One Nation Party, Senator Pauline Hanson, attempted to put on the floor of the Senate a motion to be discussed, and it was to provide the legal parliamentary mechanisms to bring on a plebiscite on the issue of population at the next federal election. Unsurprisingly, and I mean this very genuinely, unsurprisingly, the Labor Party and the Coalition, the Greens of course, the lot of them, decided that they would not support the motion, so the discussion didn't occur. I just want to know what it is about the issue of population growth that frightens the mainstream political parties so much that they don't even dare discuss the issue. It's not as if they had to vote in favour of Pauline Hanson's motion after the debate. The frightening thing is they didn't want the debate in the first place. And we've been here on a number of issues, including the burqa ban, it has to be said. Again, Pauline Hanson at the front and centre of that. She's on the line. Senator Hanson, nice to catch up.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michael. Good morning.
Why are they afraid? What's there to be afraid of a debate?
Look, population has been a taboo issue with both sides of politics, and it's never really been debated. It is the third most important issue on people's minds in Australia about immigration, and yet we are not allowed in the debate. It is not even debated. They don't discuss it. And I think it's very important because it affects everyone's lives in Australia, and whether it be jobs, whether it be housing, health, the infrastructure, our roads are congested, and yet they think they just have the complete rights to do whatever they want to do without input from the public.
Now, I mean, we're led to believe that immigration is terribly well controlled and it's all under control and it's all good. I mean, the fact of the matter is that no one believes it. I mean, when you have the population growth rate that we've seen, the highest or the second highest in the OECD, and you match that with the deficiencies of infrastructure in New South Wales particularly, where a lot of people end up living, we're playing catch-up, but that's just one issue. It's quite clear that there is no sensible plan here. We are bringing in, even Tony Abbott to his credit's made this point, we are bringing in people without a plan to accommodate them.
That's exactly right. We are growing at 1.6% annually with our population growth. We reached 24 million people, it was last year, and that was 17 years ahead of prediction. We can't keep coping with the growth that we have in Australia, and it needs to be reined in. People who live in the cities, especially New South Wales, in the cities there, the time it takes to travel to work, you're actually waiting to get to see the doctor. We're not providing the infrastructure. I mean, roads, water, sewage, hospitals, schools. Nowadays, I remember years ago when I was actually growing up, we had a problem, there was no problem. Pick up the phone, you'd see a doctor, you would actually be able to get into the hospital. There was no issues whatsoever. It didn't take you hours to get to work. These days, it's horrendous, absolutely horrendous. It does have an impact on our lives.
And the negative, the extra negative, the double negative on this, of course, Pauline, is, and again, taking a Sydney point of view on this, but this applies in Melbourne and Queensland as well. The infrastructure that is being built when it comes to roads and transport to try to alleviate the problems is all tolled. And so you've got the current population basically paying twice to accommodate new arrivals. No, I'm not criticising them. They've been invited and they've turned up, and we wish them every luck in the world. But it's a lack of oversight from the federal government that controls immigration here, which is putting pressure on the states.
Correct. As I've always said, for every migrant that comes in the country, it doesn't create one job. And I was told many years ago, and I don't know what it is now, that one migrant, you actually have to have 6 coming into the country to create one job. So unless you are very wealthy, you will not be a burden on our society. You are not looking for a job. You will buy your own home, and that's okay. But if you are actually coming here to look for a job, you're going to displace an Australian out of that workforce. So that is the problem that we're going to have. Australians are actually queuing longer for services that they require. Who is making the money out of it? Big business. They want an increase in population because they're going to turn over more product in there, whether it be white goods or whatever it is.
More people equals more customers.
Correct. Exactly right. So they want the population to grow. The government is chasing its tail when they think that, okay, we've got an ageing population, we must bring in the new migrant to actually, work here, pay the taxes so that we can actually provide for the age. The problem is, what are we going to do 50 years down the track when these people are actually retired?
When they get old. Well, this is it. You've got to bring in, it's a Ponzi, that's right, it's a Ponzi. You've got to bring in even more.
Exactly right.
And then they get old, and then you've got to bring in even more. And it's just ridiculous. Now, you tried to put this motion up in the Parliament to attach to the next federal election, so there's not an extra cost as such, getting people to the polls. Having a plebiscite on population. What sort of a question, though, would you ask? Because it's a complicated issue. How do you bring it down to a question?
Well, it was in the notice of motion that we have every day on the floor of Parliament. So basically says, asking them to support that we have a plebiscite at the next election so the Australians can have their say. And that's what it was. It's there was absolutely no support whatsoever. I was the only voice, apart from my 2 colleagues. But you've actually, I had no support whatsoever. I didn't even bother taking it to a vote, a division, because I knew there was no support for it whatsoever.
No, they run scared on this. I'm absolutely baffled as to why. But on the question,
that leads to our citizenship, and I put a private members bill in the Parliament this week, so it'll come up later in the year as far as debate. Last year, the government put up policy that they want to increase from 1-year permanent visa in Australia, that they must wait 4 years before they get their citizenship. So if you've got 1 year in the country on a permanent visa, you can then apply for citizenship. What we were saying is the government's saying should be 4 years. Well, I'm saying, hang on a minute, let's make it 8 years. If you're on a permanent visa, you have all the rights like any other Australian, but you don't have voting rights. So in that period of time, they can prove their loyalty to us. They're not a criminal, they're not a bad character, they don't want to go and fight for ISIS. And if they did, well, then we say, hang on a minute, we don't want you as a citizen. We will actually take back your permanent visa and you will actually leave the country. But hopefully that's going to come up, but I don't think I'll get support for that either. I think we're too lax in who we're inviting in this country. So many people around the world want to come to Australia. We can be very selective if we want to.
Yes, we've got the luxury of choice.
Of course we have.
Yeah. Now, on that question, though, if I can just push you on this, Pauline, if you go to a plebiscite, let's assume this got up, dream on, but let's assume it got up, we're at the next federal election, and tangential to the actual election, you've got your plebiscite on the ballot paper somewhere. I mean, what question are you asking? Is it something like, should we cap migration at 80,000 per annum? I mean, what's the question in the plebiscite?
Yes, correct. I think that we should actually ask the Australians how they feel about immigration, what they believe is, possibly the limit of a number of people they want in Australia, or, it has to be sustainable. That's what it's about. It is about ensuring that Australians have a quality of life. The last thing that we need is become like a third world country. I just went to India last year with the delegation over there. To see the poverty in that country and they cannot provide the people, there's no welfare system, there's nothing. Do we really want to become a country like that further down the track? It's not out of the realms of possibilities because we're in a debt of over $600 billion at the moment. And if we cannot if we can't pay our bills, we won't have the monies to provide, a welfare or hospital or care or education for our kids.
No, that's it.
So we really need to start waking up where we're going.
We need to have the discussion. We need to have the discussion, and of course, for whatever reason, our elected officials, despite the fact that they're masters, the public want to have the discussion, they run a mile. Just before you go, because you're out of time and I'm out of time here. Yeah. Yesterday in the Melbourne Supreme Court, I think it was, Justice Christopher Beale I think hero of the week in Australia said to a woman there who had a niqab on, you're not allowed in the court unless you take the face covering off. Now, people can wear a scarf over their head, but they're not allowed to cover their face. She obliged. She sat outside. But, I mean, this is newsworthy because it's the exception generally to the rule. I mean, you again have tried to have a discussion about that most oppressive garment, the burqa or the niqab, very similar garments. Again, no one in the Parliament wanted to follow you in the discussion. They just wanted to shut it down rather than either prove the point against you or stand in solidarity with you. And of course, this is simultaneous to, in Iran as we speak, women risking going to jail simply for not wearing a headscarf in public. Now, again, why are we afraid of the debate?
Well, we are, because we're appeasing to the minority group in this country. And under the census of the number of Muslims we have in this country, you're looking around about 700,000, 750,000. It's growing quite rapidly. The Labor Party won't do anything about it because they're gutless, because 15 of their lower house seats in your state of New South Wales is Muslim controlled.
But if they asked a bunch of the Muslim women out there, do you want the burqa banned or not? A whole bunch would say ban it.
Correct. And what we're doing is allowing them to be suppressed because men out there want them to wear it because, can't show your face. It is not a religious requirement, but the whole fact is no. They're appeasing to the minorities in this country. That's why we're in hell of a mess. That's why they want to get rid of Australia Day and have all the other problems here. It's about time, and I'll tell you, listeners, if you actually believe in our culture and our way of life, then stand up to be Australian. And, have your opinion, express your opinion. That's what I've done, but I'm doing it on the floor of Parliament. That's the only place that we can really change it and stand up for our rights and democracy that we have.
Well, keep up the good fight, Pauline. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks, Michael. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Pauline Hanson.